Hey guys, this is Daniel, aka Dr. D from Cloudy Nights, and a shout out to you guys. Hope you're all well over there. I'm going to be doing a lot of visual reviews. There's going to be strictly no astrophotography on this channel, so subscribe if you're interested. I'm going to try to cover as many telescopes. I got several videos I want to come out with. I'm going to do extremely detailed review on the Mulan series from Takahashi, as well as some of the refractors. I may cover some Schmidt-Cassegrains and stuff. We'll see how things go as we progress. I finally got some time to myself to be able to do some of this kind of work because I've been in the industry for so many years, around 30 years or so, and it's just a nice change. This is my little pup, Coda. He's 2 years old and he's 53 pounds, and he likes to roam around, hang out with me. So the thing with this telescope that's really interesting, or very rare, Peter Ceravolo is a really, he's just a master craftsman. I'm going to get into the visual quality of this telescope and tell you a little bit more about it, but Peter Ceravolo has written for the Canadian Astrophysical Journals and was really instrumental in helping amateur astronomers to better understand optics. Some of his essays are just incredible. You should go just Google his name and go to Ceravolo Optical Systems. Now, this scope was discontinued many years ago. There were a lot of Chinese imports that were coming in, and I was really saddened to see that stop manufacturing these things. But, I understand. There's just things that you have to do. And I think Peter does stuff for the aerospace industry anyway, so he's probably got bigger eggs to fry. Now, like I say, this is not going to be an imaging channel. There's plenty of imaging channels online. You guys can do that, but there's very few dedicated visual channels, so that's what this is going to be all about. So this HD145 is an f6. It's a Maksutov Newtonian. It uses a very small obstruction, as you can see here. I'll get into more details about that. I'm going to discuss the mechanics of it here. I'm just going to rotate this guy around over here. And I think Coda's taking a nap right here, right now. This primary that's on here is 6 inches, about 1 inch thick, and I think Peter put like an adhesive to keep that mirror attached to this plate. So if you want to actually remove the plate, which I just recently did, I unfortunately lost the video footage, but I had to clean the optic because it had not been touched for about 30 years, I think. It's been a long time, this scope. And to remove the primary mirror, you just loosen these 3 screws and then this plate comes off. You don't remove the cell stays there. The telescope originally belonged to science writer Terence Dickinson from Canada, who was, the famous author who did Night Watch and, Backyard Astronomer's Guide, as well as several other books. And the reason is I got an email from Terry sometime around 2010. He goes by the name Terry, for those of you who don't know. And he was telling me the story about this particular sample that I have. But what had happened is that a good buddy of mine, Wayne Hanlon, was really close friends with Terence Dickinson back in the day. And Terry ended up selling this scope to my friend Wayne because he ended up getting an HD216, which is a bigger brother, 8.5 inch. And we've had a few Ceravolos in our group. And I do have some video footage on the 216. I'll go ahead and do another review on the 216 as well later as we go. But the telescope, I ended up acquiring it from Wayne, and I've had it for quite some time. And it's just a remarkable specimen. Now, the primary mirror is a full 6 inch aperture, but it has to be masked down. That's part of the inherent design of a Maksutov Newtonian. And let me just rotate this off here and remove this dew shield. Now you have to be very careful. There's these little like grooves in here, and this is one of the earlier designs of the HD145. And the newer ones have like a glossy flock finish on the tubes, and then the dew shield screws on. But it takes quite a number of rotations to do it. I actually prefer the clip-on, but you have to be very careful putting it on there not to scratch the meniscus, because it's really a work of art, this telescope. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you rotate the tube? Okay, the tube is rotated by loosening, if you will, here. Let me just rotate around here. You just loosen these screws right here, okay? And believe it or not, it's very tight. For the tolerances of visual use, you'll be fine. You can point accurately. On my go-to mount, 8 nail stars and everything, no problem. But you can rotate it inside these rings just from the sliding, just by sliding, because there's enough tension on these rings to allow you to do so. Okay. You can see the secondary in there is very tiny. I'll go over the eyepieces and what the limitations are of that in just a moment. Now, there's no hinges on these rings, as you can see. Now, if you're concerned about rigidity, you can just add another bridge plate to the top up here. Just add a bridge plate up here, if you will. There's a Losmandy D plate underneath here, and this is one of the later lighter weight dub plates for the tube. And the telescope is astonishingly light. It weighs in at something like 12 pounds, and the rings, I think, add a couple of pounds. So I think the total weight's like something like 14 pounds. It's really super light. A refractor of comparable optical quality is going to weigh noticeably more. You're probably, by the time it's all fully loaded, it's going to weigh about twice what this does. So it's easy to mount this telescope. And it's not terribly long. I think that the tube is, it looks like it's, I don't know, roughly 40 inches or so. I didn't even measure the thing. It's not an issue. The dew shield, adds a little bit of length to it, but the dew shield's extremely light metal there. Nevertheless, I did remove the optics just recently, and it's easy I took the primary out as well as the corrector to clean the optics on it. And you'll see this mask around the edge here. And this is important because this is part of the optical design of a Maksutov Newtonian, okay? Because it gets masked down to 5.7 inches. Even, the primary is 6 inches. It gets masked down to 5.7 inches. So it's just a slight masking around the entire primary from the front. And that helps reduce coma and astigmatism and field curvature and things of that sort. I have provided a link below in the description for a detailed analysis of Maksutov Newtonians for those of you who are more, want to dive deeper into the optical design and are curious about it. So let's get on with the focuser now. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cover some of the caveats about the focuser, because I know that is one of the things that comes into question. There are several disadvantages. One is, bino viewing. Obviously, it's going to turn like this, and some bino viewers won't even come to focus with it. Now, there are ways of doing it, provided you have the right Barlows to achieve more in travel and to reach focus. What you don't want to do with this focuser is add a conventional 2" to 1.25" adapter or any type of hi-hat adapter. Because what that will do is it will force you to have to rotate this thing further inward to reach focus, which in turn intrudes into the optical path, okay? I've exaggerated my camera angle just to show you, give you an example of what I'm referring to here so you can visualize it better. The central obstruction is very tiny. It's 17% here, as you can see. It's very, very small. And as a result, if you were to use, say, a 35 panoptic eyepiece, which has a huge field stop, or a 31 Nagler, obviously you're not going to get, you're going to see some fall off around the outer periphery. It's capturing all the light cone that the telescope has to offer with room to spare. So what you're going to do is use 1.25" eyepieces. And here's a thing, a lot of misconception some amateur astronomers have, is that they always seem to think you need a 2" eyepiece to sweep the Milky Way. You do not have to use a 2" eyepiece. I don't even bother with that. What I do is remove this adapter, and I use this very thin, and the 2" one is very thin as well, this proprietary 1.25" adapter, and this keeps the focuser very shallow. Okay, it's very important to use the adapter that's provided. So here you can see an illustration here of a 24 panoptic eyepiece from Teleview and a 19 panoptic, and you can see how beautifully it frames the Pleiades cluster. The fainter one is a 24 panoptic, so you're going to have to look closely at that red circle there around the Pleiades. But yeah, as you can see here, just with the 1.25" eyepiece through this telescope, it's pretty remarkable the field of view you can get out of it. So Don't let that deter you too much regarding the having to use inch and a quarter eyepieces to take advantage. You got room to spare. It's beautiful. You get plenty of field of view with just inch and a quarter eyepieces. They're lighter weight. They don't pose balance issues, and that's one of the advantages of having inch and a quarter eyepieces. You know, some of these eyepieces, these 2-inch ones, are just huge. They're like, you know, hand grenades, and they're just so cumbersome to carry. And I actually prefer to use inch and quarter eyepieces whenever I can. So everything you want to cover, you can do with inch and a quarter eyepieces. So really, the inability to use 2-inch eyepieces is not a big deal, and you still can. You're just going to get you're going to lose some light. Now, even though there's a little bit of fall off, even with the 24-pan optic, you're not going to notice it. It's very bright out to the outer periphery, and quite gorgeous. And like I say, the illustration I showed you with the M45, you get plenty there. Now, I did reach out to Wayne Schroeder over at Starlight Instruments one time about having him do a custom Starlight Instruments feather touch focuser, and even offered to pay considerably extra to do a one-off. But he just could not. When I went back in the day, several years ago when Wayne was there at Starlight Instruments, he just explained that he couldn't meet the tolerances necessary for this telescope, which is important to get the eyepiece as close to that secondary to capture that light cone properly to reach the maximum performance of the telescope. All right, so now I'm going to cover the thermal aspects of the scope. How do you cool this thing down? There are a number of observers who use a material called Reflectix. I don't use Reflectix. Part of the reason I don't use it, there's several reasons. I'll go into it in more detail in the Mulan video that's going to be coming up. But by all means, experiment. There are a lot of people online who seem to have good results with it and like it. I don't use it because the reason is because I acclimate the scopes and just take them outside and leave them alone, because I don't have these strong dropping temperatures, so I don't have to contend with these deltas that many observers throughout the United States have to deal with, like, compared to myself. The temperatures here are like 10 degrees from, day to night. It's nothing, because I can just acclimate the scope and take it outside, and I can just rely on passive cooling. I don't have to take any active measures. The best way to do it is to just store the scope in a cold environment. It is astonishing the difference that it makes. I can't overstate that enough. It's really incredible. And you just want, the whole inside out is just cooled, right? So the other way that you can do it is that, obviously there's no vents. Like on the Intes micros, those Russian telescopes, you'll see they have these little, these little vents that go around here. And then you'll see on the back, there's no provision to add a fan. There's nothing. It's all sealed back there. But the primary substrate's only inch thick. And the scope is of so little mass, it's just very easy to acclimate the scope. Way I do it is, the option you have is just point the tube up, let the heat just rise out of the out of the focuser like so. And what I also do, and I'm going to show you later on in the video as we proceed here, you're going to see me with the Limax in here. And what the Limax does, I take the nose piece off the Limax, pop it in there, let the cool air fall down. I point the tube out, let the cool air fall down there, and the air has circulates through the tube as well as the primary. It scrubs the primary to help acclimate that, and then it flushes out here on the top, because the air has to escape out those little vents on the Limax, and that's pretty much how that works. But like I say, the air-conditioned room just really makes a big difference on it. So this here is how the meniscus is cleaned. You'll see these little clips in here. Right here, just go in and out. Okay, beautifully designed. Right to here. So it just slides right in there. So now the most important part, the visual performance. How is it? If I were to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, optical performance per its aperture, I give it a solid 10. This scope is absolutely breathtaking. It is beyond reproach. It will compete with any apochromatic refractor on the planet. I mean, absolutely, without question. It's utterly color-free. If you look at Vega, it looks pure white. Vega has a slightish bluish color, but because that's the way the star kind of perceived by the human eye, it is just utterly color free. That is one of the things. And when I tell you this, it does not look like a reflector when you look through it. It looks like a world-class refractor. But it's utterly color-free. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that. The views of planets just snap into focus without any hesitation whatsoever. The spherical correction is beyond reproach. It is so incredible. I can't overstate it enough how beautiful it performs. The direct competitor to this is the Tech 140, but for me personally, I have no trouble with this scope versus the Tech 140. There are certainly some disadvantages because the Tech 140, you don't have to worry about the focuser issues or the limitations of the eyepieces in the same manner. But like I say, you can use the 1.25-inch eyepieces with this and you'll still be good. But there are people who do want to use 2-inch eyepieces, and the Tech 140, the direct competitor to this, would be the give you that flexibility. Now, I do have a review on cloudy nights of the Ceravolo HD145 versus the Tech 140 ED, and I will post a link to that in the description below for you guys who may want to read it. Most of my shootouts comparisons are conducted with several people, and the reason I do that is to get a well-rounded perspective and opinions of different observers of all levels and experiences, guys, girls, whatever. And it helps kind of, I just take notes and form opinions and share those online. But yeah, I just can't stress enough. I mean, it's just, the coma is like minimal. I think this thing has like 30 or 40% of the coma of a conventional Newtonian. You guys can read about it in the Amateur Telescope Optics essay that's on the link below in the description to find out more. But the coma is minimal at worst. I mean, it's just not even an issue worth discussing. Field curvature is minimal. It's just, it's truly an extraordinary telescope to look through. The double stars are just beyond reproach. It's so weird, this scope, in a way. I actually was kind of perplexed by the way double stars look in this scope. The reason is the airy disks of stars look like perfect little pinballs, and without any light scatter whatsoever. And I contacted Peter Ceravolo. I said, "This thing is weird, man. This scope. It's just why are the airy disks so big in this thing? I mean, it's got a central obstruction, which is 17%, so it's basically not there. But more importantly, is like, why does it do it?" Peter says, it's because of the smooth surfaces, and the smoother the surfaces are, the better the spherical correction is, the more energy you're going to see placed in that central airy disk. And that's why the double stars look so gorgeous in the scope. I'm telling you, this is no exaggeration. I've looked at every double star in Burnham's Celestial Handbooks. These are all 3 volumes of Burnham's Celestial Handbook. I keep them up here. You guys have seen them online. I know all about looking at double stars. I've spent 30 years looking at double stars. I've looked through all sorts of telescopes. But this is just in another league, And it just, I can't say enough about it. So it gets my highest marks on optical quality. The collimation is utterly flawless. I bet if you were to put it in one of those software programs to check it, it would be flawless. In and out of focus, the collimation is just absolutely impeccable, and really just a truly beautiful and magnificent scope. So I know some of you are asking, how does it compare to an Intez? And I've looked through several Intezes of various apertures and their Mac Newtonians, and really it's just, they're not in the same league as the Ceravolos. The Ceravolos are really the benchmark, the standard by which others should be measured. And, Intez are pretty good Mac Newtonians if you're considering them, but they're still just not like this. There's just differences with the image quality and the contrast and the crispness of the focus. And I can say that wholeheartedly with reasonable experience, without question. The other thing is that this scope doesn't have to be collimated, and for example, the Intez, that's one of the drawbacks. If the collimation is set, you don't have to worry about somebody compromising the performance, because some people make their scopes worse by trying to fiddle with the collimation. if they're not set correctly, if the end user doesn't know what they're doing with it. So that's one of the things I love about the Ceravolo. It's just like a refractor. That's it, man. I'm gonna take you guys out in the outside in the yard and let you guys see how I had it all set up.